this week's Technique Tuesday video, I'll demonstrate how to insert a missing yarn over, how to drop an unintended yarn over, and how to move a misplaced yarn over to the correct location. As always, if you'd like to jump right to a specific point in the video, there are direct links down in the description. When working stitch patterns that include yarn overs, one of the most common problems is placing a yarn over in the incorrect location or forgetting to place one at all. This is especially common when working lace patterns because of the large number of yarn overs that occur in them. You can also end up with unintentional yarn overs in patterns that aren't supposed to have any. But regardless of the reason for the mistake, I'm going to show you how to fix them. So let's get started. One of the most common reasons for getting an extra yarn over is forgetting to move the yarn when you are transitioning from a knit to a purl stitch or vice versa. So right here I have just completed a knit stitch and the yarn is behind. And if I go and I insert to work my purl stitch and then I bring the yarn over in order to work the purl, I end up getting this extra stitch here. This can happen when I'm going from a knit to a purl as well. So here I have just finished a purl and I'm going to knit it, and then I have to bring it over the yarn in order to work the knit. I'm doing this with the yarn in my left hand, but that can happen when you have the yarn in your right hand as well. If I've just completed a knit stitch and I go, or just completed a purl stitch and the yarn's in front and I go to do a knit stitch and the yarn has to come over the needle in order for me to wrap it at the back of the work. And again, you get this yarn over sitting on top of the needle. So now I'm done with my ribbing. I'd been working that last row of ribbing and now I'm purling across the next row, and I come to this stitch here that's not a stitch, it's a yarn over, and I didn't intend to have it. What I can do is I can just knock it off the end of the needle and it will lie there. What a yarn over is it's just the running stitch or running thread between these two stitches, but it was just sitting on top of the needle. So it might be a little larger than it would, a little longer than it would be if I had not accidentally created that yarn over. This running stitch might be a little bit longer, but it's not going to be too bad at all. And then again, I have this one here and I can just knock it off the needle. So in this case, I had two of these yarn overs in one row and I knocked them off the needle, and that produces a little bit of excess slack in that one row, but only around those two particular stitches. If I really felt like it was gappy, I could manually tighten or manually move the slack along the row if I felt like I needed it. But because I only had that happen twice, it's not a big deal. Now let's talk about what happens if you forget to do a yarn over. So what you can see I've got going on right here is I'm knitting across until I get to this line of decreases, and then I do a yarn over right before I do a decrease. So on this edge I'm doing a yarn over and then I'm doing a left leaning decrease right after that, and then over here I'm doing a right leaning decrease or knit two together, and then I do a yarn over after that. So I'm going to show you what you can do if you forget to do the yarn over. So in this row I'm just going to work the decreases and I'm going to forget to do the yarn overs. So I've gotten done with the row, and maybe I go back and I count my stitches and I realize I'm too short, and I realize, oh, I forgot to do my yarn overs. Now I could either tink all the way back and redo that, or I could do something to mark the location of where this yarn over should be. I could put a marker right here between the resulting decrease and the other stitch to say I should have a yarn over right there. So this is the location where I should have had a yarn over and I don't. So if I know that, if I can catch it, which is really hard to find usually on the wrong side of the work because you're usually just purling across. So what I'm looking for is the strand of yarn right here that's connected to this stitch that's coming out of the needle. This right here, that's the running thread between two stitches. So I want to bring my left hand needle underneath that strand so that it's from front to back so that it's sitting on the needle. Now the yarn over is there. I've replaced it so it's there, and now I can purl it like I should be purling it on this row. What's more likely to happen is that I won't notice as I'm working across this row in just all purl stitches. I am unlikely to notice that there's anything missing because I'm just thinking about purling everything. I'm not thinking about any of the pattern stitching. So this is the point. You can see here where I replaced it and I worked it. I've got all three, but you can see here I've got two yarn overs, one here and one here, and I'm missing one up here. And that's the problem. I'm missing the yarn over that I should have had there. So here is where the line of decreases is. And this is where the yarn over and the new stitch should have been. So one way to take care of this is to get a crochet hook. And you see that there's this running thread and then there's the one below it. It's the one below that this is the one that should have created the yarn over, and then the top strand is the one that should have knit that yarn over. So you want your crochet hook under both strands, and then you're going to pull that top one underneath the lower one, and then you want to get this on the needle. I'm going to enter like this to get that on the needle, and now we have the third eyelet. So now I can knit this stitch, and now I can create the yarn over for this row before I work that decrease. The other option is to come under the lower strand with your needle, and then you can grab the upper strand too. I'm doing this separately because otherwise they tend to cross over each other and they're hard to tell apart. And then you pull that lower one over the upper one, and now you've completed it. So now you have your yarn over and you have the worked stitch, and now you can work it for this row. Okay, so what I did here, I was working along in my little lace project, and then I switched the direction of the decreases. So here I had a left leaning decrease with the yarn overs before it, and now I switched to a right leaning decrease over here with the yarn overs after. So I've switched the order of them, and I was doing okay, but I messed up on this one. I did my yarn over before I did the decrease, and so I have this on the wrong place. So I have a yarn over like I was supposed to have, but it's in the wrong place. So what I'm going to do is correct that. So here's where the error is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix that error, and then I'm going to work these stitches. So I'm not going to knit anything right now. I'm going to slip this stitch over here, and I'm going to let this one come off like that. And then I'm going to slip this one over here, and you can see I've got this extra slack in here because I've released the yarn over, and now I need to replace it in here, and with a little bit of pulling I can kind of get that slack over to this side if I want to. So I'm going to lift that bottom strand up on the needle, and now I'm going to lift the other strand up so I can just keep them separate. Pull that one over the other one. Now I've got the yarn over in the correct place, and now I'm going to slip these stitches back that I haven't worked yet. As I nearly always mention, practicing the techniques shown in the video on a swatch will allow you to better understand how to work these techniques, whether it's picking up a forgotten yarn over and creating the knit stitch above it, or dropping a column of stitches down to the yarn over and recreating it in the correct spot. If you have any comments or questions about today's video or suggestions for videos you'd like to see in the future, you can leave those down in the comments below or join the discussion in my Ravelry group, Rocks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.